Hello everybody, my name's Zahir and I want to welcome you all to my channel Plants and Paints. Before we get started today, I just want to wish everybody a happy new year. I hope that this year is going to be a great year for you. Um, Thank you everyone for your support throughout the last year in the growth of my Instagram and YouTube channel, and also my business. We'll talk a little bit more about my appreciation towards that at the end of today's video. But today's video is going to be on the care and maintenance of the Anthurium Vittarifolium. For those of you who are unaware or who are new to my channel, I put up a vote on Instagram on a regular basis where I allow people to choose between 3 or 4 plants as to which plant they would like me to do a care and maintenance video on for that particular week. And this week the Anthurium Vittarifolium won by a huge margin. So I'm happy to say I'm here to do the Anthurium Vittarifolium care and maintenance video for the, I think it was around 50 or maybe just over 50 people or just under 50 people who actually voted for this video. So there was a lot of interest. I think in fact, as far as my votes are concerned, this week's votes were the most votes I've actually collected on any of my votes for a video that I'm due to record. So thank you everybody who has voted on my video. If you're new to my YouTube channel, just pop over to my Instagram, which is also called Plants and Paints, and you will see probably about every week to 2 weeks I put a vote up in my story, and you'll be able to place a vote for whichever plant it is that I put up for that particular week. So okay, let's get started on the care and maintenance video for the Anthurium Vittarifolium. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a general introduction into the plant before we get started on the care and maintenance. So the Anthurium Vittarifolium is a genus of plant from the Aurumeraceae family, and comes from the largest Araceae family known to man, which is the Anthurium family. The actual numbers for this species go above 1,000, so there are over 1,000 Anthurium species out there, which I think is a lot of the reason why, particularly myself, this is my favorite species of plant. I love the variety of Anthuriums that actually become available. Every time I put in a new plant order, I seem to come across new species of plants, which generally is more thanks to the people who are requesting particular types of plants from me. So thank you to all of those people who are pre-ordering stuff or giving me suggestions as to what they would like to see in my future plant hauls. And I think that has been the main reason why I generally have grown to love Anthurium so much. So the Anthurium is a herbaceous epiphyte which can be natively found growing in the tropical rainforests of Southern America in places such as Colombia and Ecuador. So it's a rainforest type plant, and being that it's an epiphyte, it's going to grow up in the trees or up attached to something. We'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. The Anthurium Vittarifolium can sometimes be heard of being referred to as a strap leaf or a lace plant due to the nature of which its foliage is produced. It produces beautiful long belt-like leaves which in its native environment have been recorded at lengths of up to and over 2 meters in length, whilst remaining quite narrow in form. This plant has been growing in popularity in the aeroid trade, as most aeroids are the type that are generally housed in pots which you're going to keep on the floor or on a shelf or something like that, whereas the Anthurium Vittarifolium actually is suited to things like hanging baskets or vertical walls. So it's something a little bit different to be able to keep. And even myself, I enjoy the change to be able to have an aeroid that I'm able to put up on a vertical system or in a hanging pot, and generally I have mine around my window area in a hanging pot, but will be transferred to my growing wall in the near future. I don't think this is going to be the actual one because I do have this one up for sale at the moment, So this one will probably end up being sold, and to be honest, I want to get something a significant amount bigger than this for my own personal collection. So um, going back briefly to the mention of the term epiphyte, I just want to clarify for anyone not sure what this is, that epiphyte refers to the way in which the plant grows, and an epiphytic plant, also known as an air plant, refers to any plant which grows upon another plant or object for physical support and has no attachment itself to the ground. Also, it's worth noting that generally where they choose to grow does not harm the host plant in any particular type of way. Now, I can understand that when you're thinking about plants, generally, when you think of, or for those of you who know about plants, when a plant generally attaches itself to another plant, it can quite often be considered a parasitic type of plant that does that. Whereas the anthuriums are not parasitic, so they're not going to harm their host in any kind of way. And I thought that, you know, I would just make it very clear to people who are not quite sure what an epiphyte is, just to make sure that there's a clear understanding. So for instance, if you were to find this in its native environment, generally what you're going to find it growing, how you're going to find it growing, is attached to a branch of a tree and its roots wrapped around that branch, hence the also popular description for the plant as an air plant, because the roots are exposed to the air and they're gaining their nutrients from the moisture and the rain from the rainforest that is traveling down those trees or down those branches. So yeah, that is your general description into why or what an epiphyte actually is. Just out of interest also, I thought I would mention that during my research of this plant, I actually came across quite a few images of a variegated variety of the Vittarifolium, which I am going to actually look to source because it was actually quite beautiful. I had an immediate attraction to that plant, so I think if I manage to source some, I definitely will keep one for myself because it's something a little bit different. And these are becoming more common in the trade, so to have something that's not your general everyday Vittarifolium will be something quite nice. But it's also something for you to keep a lookout for if this is a plant you're interested in keeping within your collection. Also keep an eye out for the variegated variety too, because you might end up liking that as well. So that is my general introduction into the Anthurium Vittarifolium. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the care and maintenance of this plant. So as per usual, for any of you who are regular people to my YouTube channel, you'll know I generally follow a particular order. And as per usual, we're going to start off with lighting. So the Anthurium Vittarifolium likes medium to bright indirect lighting conditions, but will not tolerate bright direct light. So keep this plant away from bright direct sunlight. So no south-facing windows, etc., as this will eventually result in damaging the plant and could even eventually end up killing it. So like for instance myself, I keep it in a north-facing window and I'm in a shaded part of the building where I live in as well. So even though I'm in a north-facing window and the light is restricted, generally I get less light than what you would usually even receive through a north-facing window, because I'm in the corner of my building, which means I'm in the shade most of the time anyway. But enough light is getting through that the Vittarifolium is growing and actually has produced new growth since it's been with me, which is probably a few weeks, I suppose. But this leaf has grown since it's been in my care, so you can actually tell that it is thriving where it is at the moment. It also, when I received it, it was in flowering at the time. I think that's pretty much spent now, so I will remove that in due course. But like I said, it's in a north facing window for me. It's not in the best lighting conditions, but it does seem to be happy enough. I mean, you can see from the plant that I've got on display here, which is the one that I have left, that you know, it seems quite happy, and this leaf here is doing really quite well. So that is your lighting. I know it was brief. I'm just going to keep everything as brief as possible, because going over my videos that I did last year, I put a lot of information into each individual part of the care and maintenance, and I don't want to bombard you with too much information, because you're coming here for the basics to make you comfortable to be able to keep this plant. Now, if you disagree with me doing that, please let me know, because I will revert back to my general way of doing the video where I will go into a lengthy description as to why I believe that to be the case. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to potting mix. So the potting mix for the Anthurium Vittarifolium, like lighting, plays a key role in ensuring that the optimal growth rate and deep green coloration of the plant is maintained. So I definitely advise that you should be using a high quality, well draining potting mix, such as orchid bark potting mix, a good quality fast draining potting soil, perlite and horticultural charcoal where available. Now, I understand that most of the things that I've mentioned in there, your average aroid collector will have. So for instance, orchid bark mix is generally something that goes into an aroid mix. Perlite also, and a well draining good quality potting soil. Those things generally we will have around, but horticultural charcoal might not be in everyone's collection, but if you do have it, it would be something that I would suggest to add into the potting mix. But if you don't, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to run out and actually buy yourself a bag of that. If you have it, great. If not, don't worry. It's not essential, it just would benefit the plant for you to have that in there. So that is your potting mix for the plant. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to watering. So the Anthurium Vittarifolium does not like a soggy environment, hence the recommended potting mix that I've mentioned. Make sure to keep the potting mix evenly moist, but not waterlogged or soggy. So when watering, make sure to remove any runoff water immediately after watering, which will ensure that the excess water is not sucked back up into the potting medium, which will in turn reduce the odds of having overwatered your plant during watering. When watering your plant, use room temperature water. I generally use filtered water when watering all my plants. I will tell you the same thing in every video. If you don't have filtered water, then you can use bottled water or even rainwater. Rainwater is quite good because it's full of lots of different types of nutrients that it's naturally bringing along with it. So those are the ways that I would recommend watering the plant. What we will do next is we will talk about humidity. So the Anthurium Vittarifolium likes a high humid environment, so try to replicate this as closely as possible. You can do this by using a humidifier and a regular misting to the plant. Now, in a lot of my videos, there are many ways that I actually suggest to you that you're able to raise the humidity around your plant, but because this particular plant is in a hanging basket in general in people's collections, because I can't imagine everyone's going to have a green wall or some kind of vertical system where they're able to display their plant in that way. So in general, I would imagine it's going to go into a hanging basket. So the ways to keep the humidity high, therefore, I would suggest if you've got a humidifier, that would be perfect, because that will keep the humidity in the room quite high. Alternatively, you can give the plant regular misting. I mist all my plants up to twice a day, sometimes up to 3 times a day if I get the time in my day. So early in the morning as I'm getting ready for work, so 6-7 o'clock in the morning, I'm up, I mist all my plants, and then if I come home and I'm not busy in the afternoon, I will mist them again, and then I'll mist them again in the evening. So mist your plant as often as you can. The other thing that you can do that I thought about is, if you've got a drip tray on your plant and you've got it in a hanging basket, then what you can actually do is you can fill that drip tray with pebbles, as I've mentioned in my other videos. Then half fill that drip tray with water and sit your pot on top of those pebbles, just ensuring that the pot is not in contact with that water. That way the water in the drip tray will evaporate around the plant and keep a natural humidity level around the plant for you. The other thing that you can do is you can get yourself beach shells, so shells you're going to pick up at the seaside, or that sort of shell. So you can buy them from the shops, you can buy them online, you can buy them all over the place. You can put a scattering of those in the top of the potting mix, and when you're watering the plant, they will collect reservoirs of water, which will also aid in creating that humid environment for you. But obviously you're only going to fill those up when you're watering the plant. You're not going to rely on those as your consistent humidity for your plant. So that is sort of a temporary solution, whereas the pebbles in the bottom, you can top that up as and when needed. So that's the humidity of the plant talked about. What we're going to do next is we're going to talk about fertilizing. So for fertilizing your Anthurium Vittarifolium, I would suggest that during the growing season you fertilize the plant quite regularly. I would actually suggest to fertilize this once every 3 waterings. Now, when fertilizing, I would recommend that you add the fertilizer at 1/4 dilution rate as to what the manufacturer is recommending. Manufacturers will recommend to, just as an example, put 10 ml per litre of water. You can follow that regime as if you want to, but I would suggest that 1/4 of that dilution rate is going to be adequate enough. And if you notice that the plant is slowing down, you can its growth pattern during a growing season, then you can slightly start to raise that as you see fit. Although I very much doubt that you're going to need to do that. You know, a manufacturer of a product is going to want you to come back as often as possible to buy that product again and again and again. So I recommend a 1/4 dilution rate, which, as I was mentioning earlier, if they're recommending 10 ml per litre of water, you're going to add 2.5 ml. And you're going to want to use the balanced fertilizer. So your NPK rating on that fertilizer, just as an example, for it to be balanced, will be 20 in the N, 20 in the P, and 20 in the K. So 20, 20, 20 as a ratio. So you might get some that say 20, 20, 20, or 30, 30, 30, whatever it is, as long as they're balanced or near enough the same numbers, then that generally is your balanced fertilizer. So use a balanced fertilizer for this. Water it with nutrient every 3rd watering. The reason I say that is to make sure that you're not over fertilizing your plant. So you're adding your fertilizer every 3rd watering. The other 2 waterings are just ensuring that if there is any fertilizer left, it's not being allowed to build up. It will disperse with that extra watering that you're giving it in between the fertilizing into the soil and become more readily available for the plant to take it up if it is left. So that is your fertilizer. What we're going to do now is we're going to talk briefly about temperature. So the ideal growing temperature for this plant is between 26 and 32 degrees Celsius in the daytime, and from 20 to 26 degrees Celsius during the evening. Now, the temperatures I've mentioned are based on optimum growing conditions. So this is just to ensure that you get the best possible growth rate and vigor out of your plant. So keeping that deep green coloration, the sheen on the leaves that you'll generally get over the growing season, and that vigorous growth that it actually is known to put out. So keeping within those temperature ranges is just going to ensure that you're going to get that to the best of the plant's ability. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that going outside of those temperature ranges by a couple of degrees up or down is going to be detrimental to the plant, but it might have an effect. It might do things like slow the growth rate down. It might, if it gets too cold, it might start showing cold damage signs and things like that. But providing you're monitoring it and you're staying on top of it and you're not letting it occur over extended periods of time, then you should be fine. Because in general, from what I can tell over importing these over several occasions and during the winter, they seem to be quite a hardy plant. So I won't worry too much if it's fluctuating in and out of those slightly. Just don't let it go too much and don't let it go over extended periods of time. So that is the temperature for the plant. What we're going to do lastly, before I do my outro talk, is we're going to talk a little bit about toxicity. Now, if I ever come across a plant that I know is toxic, I like to give a description of its toxicity in the video, because generally when you buy a plant, it might just tell you that it's toxic and it's not safe for animals and not safe for pets, but that doesn't tell you necessarily what to look for if something is going wrong, or what kind of toxins that plant has should you need to relay that information to your GP or your or a paramedic that may need to attend for whatever reason. So the toxins of this plant are known as calcium oxalate crystals. The Vittarifolium is toxic to both people and pets, and symptoms of ingestion will include burning, swelling and irritation of the mouth, lips and esophagus, and excessive salivation, plus severe gastric irritation, and also breathing difficulties with the possibility of vomiting. So if you have children at home who are quite hands-on and they get involved with your plants and they happen to rip the leaf on a plant, or you've got pets who like to nibble on plants, and you notice all of a sudden, you know, either your pet or your child is showing signs of irritation towards their throat in a close time proximity to having been around those plants, as a precaution, I would say just go and check over the plant just to be able to rule it out more than anything. I'm not suggesting that, you know, your kids or your animals are going to sit there and actually physically start eating the plant, because, you know, if we know the plants are toxic, generally we tend to keep them away from our pets anyway. My cat seems to be all right. He doesn't particularly bother with my plant so much, but some people do have inquisitive pets or birds that fly around and tend to be able to get to places where these kind of plants are kept. And I would just say keep an eye out if you notice anything is wrong with your pet or your child, and try and rule this out. And you're going to get every opportunity to be able to do that, because just as an example, you're going to phone your GP. Your GP might not have an appointment straight away, or might say, okay, get ready and come down. While you're getting your child ready, you could get your partner or anyone else who's in the house to quickly check over those plants to make sure that there's no signs of damage. Or if a paramedic is on their way to you, equally, again, you've got time on your hands to be able to scan over that, or get someone else to scan over that for you, just to be able to rule that out more than anything. And if there does seem to be an issue and it might be connected to that plant, you then have the information to be able to give either the GP, the paramedic or the vet concerning what type of toxins are causing the irritation, and therefore they'll be able to act more appropriately in a quicker manner. So that is my description of the Anthurium Vittarifolium, as well as the care and maintenance guide for that. So before I end the video, I just want to briefly thank all the people who voted for my video today. I think I received pretty much around about 100 votes on this particular vote that I put up. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier in the video, but I do an Instagram vote every week to 2 weeks where I ask people out of a selection of 4 different plants which plant they would like to see a care and maintenance video on for that particular week. And this week, actually, the Anthurium Vittarifolium won by a huge margin. My wife is sitting behind the camera pulling faces at me. Sorry if I'm struggling to keep a straight face right now. So yeah, the Anthurium Vittarifolium won by a huge margin. I think it actually got around about 50 votes out of 100, around about 100 votes. So For everybody who voted, whether your choice won the vote or not, I thank you all for participating in that vote. And I'm super happy to have done this video because I've had a lot of requests from people to do a care and maintenance on this, and lots of people, when I put the vote up, saying how excited they would be if I actually got to do this. So thank you for all the people who've been patient enough to wait for this video to actually come out. My Instagram account, for those of you who are new to my YouTube channel, is also called Plants and Paints, so feel free to pop over to my Instagram account to be able to put your votes in, and also just to see what's going on my Instagram. I post regular updates on my plants. I also put updates on the plant hauls that I get in, because for any of you who are not aware or new to my channel, I actually sell plants for a living as well. So that on Instagram you get to get lists of what I'm importing, and at the moment my current import list is sitting at around about 100 plants every around about 3 times per month. So that's that. What I want to do, I want to thank everybody for your support over the past year. I really can't express to you enough how much I appreciate the support I've received. I mean, from my Instagram channel to my YouTube channel to the starting of my plant business, I've received so much support from everybody, and I've met so many lovely people over the past year and made so many good friends over my Instagram and YouTube accounts that, you know, I actually feel really privileged to have been met with so much enthusiasm. And to be honest, I owe everything that I've achieved to all of you. So thank you so much for your dedication towards me, and your kindness towards me, and your acceptance of me in this community. It's been really quite overwhelming to think that I've come towards the end of the year. I've had so much happen over this year as far as the plant community is concerned, and how much my Instagram and YouTube channel have grown during that period of time. Thank you everyone for tuning in again today. I really hope that you've enjoyed my video. I look forward to making a lot more content for you in the future. I will have another plant haul video coming up soon. I didn't actually plan on making as many plant haul videos as I'm probably going to end up doing, but the response that I get from people, like the messages, the DMs that I get on my Instagram from people saying how amazed they are at the kind of things that I'm able to bring in and offer out to people to be able to add to their collections, I just thought it's something that I would do on the odd occasion. But because it's received such a great response, I think it's something that I'm going to do as much as possible where my plants are being delivered to me. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in today. My name is Zahir. This is Plants and Paints. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you all again soon. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.